Hi, I'm Tom Stephenson and welcome to our site management course. This is lecture 10A and we're going to be looking at digital tools in construction that help to increase productivity and how the construction industry is changing in that regard and some of the things that we should be thinking about why a company is doing something a certain way and what the opportunities that are presented to that particular company are. So it really ties to the things that we've been talking about throughout this whole course, which includes document control, and that's all of these documents that we've been looking at, such as RFIs, submittals, project updates, photographic documentation, drawings, specifications, change orders, closeout documents, lead documentation. They all fall into this sort of realm of how do we organize ourselves to be more productive. And we've talked about at the very beginning of the course the aspect of setting goals for a project: time, cost, quality, scope, safety. And we also talked about systems and processes and habits and rituals and routines to improve productivity. So we'll talk a little bit today about some of the digital enhancements that can be helped. And we'll also look in 10B at building information modeling, because it's also obviously a digital enhancement. But today we'll kind of hone in on the productivity side a little bit, productivity software side. Definitely there's a lot of things that we need to think about with productivity and those areas. These are some more of the objective things that we'll be looking at, including photo documentation, planning and scheduling software. I won't get too much into that because in the previous lectures I've kind of done some pretty good demonstrations with Microsoft Project. If you're not sure of that, you can review some of the previous lectures and you'll see that. Particularly, I think it was lecture 9C, I think we did a fair bit on that. So in the construction industry, everything is digital in one way, shape, or form. And we're actually, I think, on the cusp of a lot of innovations in the areas of things like 3D printing. We have a lot of things with digital tools like laser scanning and use of drone technology. And I think not too far off in the distance, there's a lot of opportunities for artificial intelligence, even to be taking over some of the more or the less intricate and more repetitive aspects of even some of the trade work, dare I say, but I think it's on the horizon. So these are some of the evolving changes that are taking place. So I think if you're going to have a career in the construction industry, I think you should embrace change. I think you should look for ways to leverage change to your advantage. And I think if you're not doing that, then you're going to find it replacing you soon enough. So you have to have a very sort of proactive view of it, and not sort of a resistant Luddite view of it. If you don't know what a Luddite is, you can look a little bit back in history where they tried to stop the advances of technology. Yes, and so those are some of the things. And obviously, anything that can make our job easier is important. And some of the things that make our job easier is making it easier to collect data, making it more seamless to be able to access the data, making it more easy to manipulate the data to give us really valuable information. And I guess we'd use the term mine the data for information, but you can't really mine the data for information unless it's been accurately gathered and input into some sort of system. And that's what a database system is, that it holds that information and makes it accessible for the people that need to access it. So definitely access to that information in a dynamic way instead of a static way is very, very helpful for business, because it's going to make things quicker. It's going to expedite the tasks. It's the way that things used to be don't make any sense today. And I still see on some construction sites where they're trying to still get along with things from the past, and they are getting along. And you may be with a smaller company or a mid-size company that's kind of a little bit of a laggard in that way. That's possible. But at some point, it's really going to require an effort to get up to date and make things more seamless. One of the resistant aspects of developing processes and systems is that it's going to require training. It's going to require upgrading of systems. There's cost implications, initial cost implications to that. And it's kind of like, there's people that still write checks to pay all of their bills. And because, it's too much to learn the software system, the banking system. I got to set up all these accounts. Yeah, you know what? It takes a little bit of time to set up the individual accounts online. But once you set it up, you can, in minutes, pay all your bills instead of manually filling out invoices and putting checks in an envelope and mailing it and walking it to a mailbox and mailing it. Even depositing checks is very easy and seamless to do. You can set up accounts with companies where they'll do a direct deposit for you, or you can have that if they do send you a check, maybe it's a company that still sends out checks, you can just take a digital image of it and deposit it electronically. Sometimes there's a little bit of bugs in the systems. I've had where some of the electronic checks, when I'm depositing them, it's a little bit hard to take the photograph of the check for whatever the reason, maybe the lighting and that. But once you figure it out, it goes really, really easy. And then after a while, you can't think of doing it any other way, or for some reason you're stuck and it's a US check, like I received some US checks. It's all of a sudden this big deal. Oh, I got to go to the bank and I got to deposit this US check because they haven't really got the system yet to do the digital photography. I suspect that'll come in the next few months, but while you wait for the technology, sometimes you have to revert to the old technology. So that's, the aspect of thinking about systems and reviewing it. So some companies, they don't recognize that the training and retraining, if you change systems, it's an investment. So you have to look at the system that you're purchasing and make sure it's in alignment, that it really will give you the advantages that you're seeking. Because that happens too. You could spend a lot of money on a particular system and it really doesn't work the way you expected it to work. So you have to do a little bit of homework and make sure that this system is going to reap the rewards. And I'll mention a certain tool that can be helpful when you look at that. There's a lot of different tools that you can use in this kind of aspect when you're making a decision on a major purchase. There's a lot of tools, decision-making tools, including the 5 whys, value stream mapping, root cause analysis, but we'll look at one of them. So specific software versions are also important, and how often do we update and do we need to update? Those are all questions that you determine when you're setting up for a particular software, and what is the return on investment. It's important to have some understanding of that. Really, it's good to know too when we're talking about document flow, how it flows through the company. What are the individual checks and balances, like a flow chart for how information flows. And in your textbook, actually, I think there was really good example that we talked about earlier in the course, and you can go back to some of the earlier lectures, particularly on the submittal log process and the procurement log process that we had. There's a flow chart in your textbook, and it sort of went step by step by step, and I talked about it in one of the earlier videos. Probably it was in the first or second video, I'm going to say, maybe even the third week, first, second, third. And it showed a lot of steps and a lot of steps in that process. And so I'd be looking at that and I'd be wanting to see, is there anything that makes these steps, gets rid of some of the steps, makes the steps flow more easily? And if there is, then what would that save for me? How much time would that potentially save? And that's part of lean construction methodology, is looking at a process like that and saying, how do we currently do it? And how can we do it better? So it is what we would call, we use a tool called value stream mapping. Value stream mapping. There's a lot of information online about value stream mapping. You can do a little bit of background research if you wish. You could Google lean value stream mapping or lean construction value stream mapping. Particularly, probably YouTube would pull up a few good videos on it with some interesting examples. But value stream mapping, it's really, we think about it in two processes. One, you get the group that's involved in this together and you collaborate in trying to figure out what's all the steps involved in this process. And you look at all the steps that's involved in the process, and then you look, well, that's the current state map. So what do we do now? What are all the steps? Like the submittal log example that we used with the flowchart earlier in the course. And then you look at it and you say, well, what's a possible future state map? Let's collaborate and look, is there a way that we can streamline this so that it makes it go faster? And can we eliminate some of the steps, or can we change the process involved in some of the steps? Maybe we can have some things happening concurrently that would dramatically speed this up. There's been research studies on real projects that have been done in this particular area in lean construction to look at how do we shorten the change order process with this government agency. So maybe you have a government agency that the bureaucracy is so large that a change order to actually process it takes months to do. And that's obviously going to have huge impacts on construction projects. And so you do a value stream map of why is this taking so long now? And then what can we do in this map to actually shorten it? And of course, if you have everybody that's involved in the value stream, they have their own ideas about what slows them down. And then you can really sort of dig deep into those areas and look at possible remedies. And in some of the examples, they've literally shortened the process by months in being able to get a change order through and get payment out to the contractor, where the contractor, in the one example, I think it was taking about 4 or 5 months for them to actually get paid, approved, paid for the change order. And they got that down to something like 90 days. So instead of taking 4 or 5 months, you got it down to 3 months. And that's still a long time, right? But that's continuous improvement in the process. You keep looking at it. Once you finish it, you look at, well, how can we do it better still? And so there's a lot of tools that can help you. This is a tool to help determine the problem, but maybe part of the solution is to use a digital tool like a productivity software to help make the process go faster. So, you're developing this sort of flow chart, and this is sort of a high level flow chart. Then a value stream map would break it down into, could be 25 steps involved in one item. And then looking at each one of those steps, how do we improve that, right? So this is a high level sort of view. Better one probably to look at would be that submittal log one that I mentioned earlier. And there's all kinds of productivity software out there. Excellent tools that I've already mentioned in the previous lectures where we talked about cost and time. Software programs, Microsoft Project, Primavera P6 would be two examples of productivity planning and scheduling software that are highly widely used in construction. And then there's, of course, all the cloud-based systems that are out there now. Pretty much any kind of system coming out now is cloud-based. A huge advantage of cloud-based is it's on a server. You don't have to worry about something getting damaged on a piece of hardware and it not being backed up. Everything is working from the cloud, so to speak. But the other huge advantage is it can be a dynamic document so that anything that's been changed can be seen live by the people that have access to it. And then rights can be provided too, where certain people can view the information, but they can't change the information, and other people can view and change the information. You don't want the wrong people being able to edit things. And then there's things you don't want some people to be able to see, so you give them rights to certain documents or types of documents and limit their rights to other areas. So that's the difference between having static information and dynamic information. And until recently, very recently, and your textbook even refers to a lot of it too, we've lived in a world of static information where something is sort of printed and then we're looking at this printed document. And meanwhile, in the background, people are changing the drawings, but you've got this printed document, so you're going by this printed document. but the change order has already gone through. And so whatever you're doing is wrong because something has been updated while you've been doing this. So you want to be able to access information in real time so that you know that this is the most current document. And then maybe have in the system an archive that you could look, well, what was the previous? Oh, this was what we were referring to, and this is the date it changed. So this is when we have to be using this document, and these are the repercussions. So you can follow a trail, a timeline with the document that's properly stored and managed that way, because the timing and the dating of documents is extremely important in construction because things are dynamic in construction. They are not static. We've talked about change orders and how rapidly changes occur in construction. And we have to have some sort of management system that controls it. And there are a lot of different systems. So I'm not here to report on a singular system. I'm just here trying to educate you on the value of the systems and understanding in general how they work, because then it's just coming down to the particulars of how this particular system works. So there's a lot of things that we incorporate, and photo documentation and being able to upload photos very quickly and easily from an iPad or your iPhone or Android, whatever it is that you use. Snap, click up, and it's date stamped, and so you know that that picture was taken on this date, and so that can be very helpful for documenting and tying together information like that's in a scheduling software. When you're saying that the bridge abutment on the east side was completed on September 21st, 2021, you got a picture of it, and there it is. It's complete, and it's time-stamped, that date. That's very compelling information that is what happened. So that's very helpful, especially in our litigious society where we do run into claims and things that you want to be able to refute as best as possible. Now, can some things be manipulated, etc.? I'm sure they can. But really, it is helpful because he or she who has the best documentation wins, as I've quoted before and saying in the course. So this is important from that perspective, and from the perspective of not making mistakes, not having to do rework, and being organized and not wasting a lot of time looking for stuff and not sure if you've got the right stuff. So it's very, very helpful from that point of view to have these technologies in place and to tie them together. I thought what I'd do is I'd try this video on here. Hopefully it works. This is straight from Procore. This is one of their videos. Procore is a company that does productivity software for construction, very popular software. And this is not a promotion for Procore. Other ones in the field, Bluebeam, FieldWire, to name a couple of other ones that are popular. All kinds of different productivity software out there. Ones from Autodesk. I'll use Autodesk in the next one when we look at some BIM software. But it's just really about what they can do and how they do it. So whatever you see here, you can pretty much imagine that whatever the productivity software is, it should be able to do similar things. If it can't, it's not much of a productivity software. So it's good to get that understanding, and also understand, depends who you work for, you're going to have to just be able to adapt. And, you figure out how this works. There's all kinds of these videos on YouTube by each manufacturer of each software program. They want to educate their people on how to do it. You can figure this stuff out pretty quickly for the scope of things that you would be required to do on the job, because you don't have to know everything of a particular software. Usually hone in on the things that's under your responsibility, and then maybe over time you expand that so that then maybe you do become the knowledge person in that company for that particular software. And I'm sure that would make you an asset to that company, because you could also mine it for more data, or know what it's able to do and consult with the individuals within that company or people that are hired for help purposes within the particular software that you use. I find that for myself personally, it's not always been easy for me too. When I started in this industry, there was no computers, or if there was, everybody sort of laughed at it and said, you're wasting your time and wasting your energy. It just costs too much, this and this and this. And I can remember back to a time where I thought if I could print something off of a computer, that would be a great thing. So that's how far back I go. But I was kind of fortunate when I was learning computer software and how computers work. I kind of was doing a degree online. I was teaching at George Brown College, and at York University, I was doing a business degree. But I was taking some courses in computer programming, and you had to learn very quickly, and they didn't really show you, and you had to figure it out. And they were using a system called the Next system. And the Next system, if anybody has any history, knows that it was developed by Steve Jobs was one of the founders of Next when he got booted out of Apple. And then when he got hired back with Apple, that was the core of what he brought back into Apple as their operating system. So I had to learn that. At work, we had a Mac, and I had my own computer, which was Windows. So I was learning all three at the same time. So talk about a little bit confusing. But at the same time, you started to realize they kind of do the same thing. They're just doing them in a little bit different ways. And then over time, I kind of took an approach that whatever the software is, I'm just going to figure it out, and I'm going to work at it and figure it out. And so there's going to be a learning curve, there's going to be mistakes, etc. But that's okay. I'm going to figure it out through my mistakes, and even using this Camtasia software that I'm using right now. I've shot some videos they didn't record sometimes. I made mistakes, and so you learn, why didn't it record? Okay, put that into a checklist. Make sure I don't miss this again. And then you start getting it down, and then it becomes a routine, a habit, and then you become good with it. And then if the company decides they're going to change something, or you go to a different company, you've got a process, you've got your own personal process system that you use and you approach to things, and you're not as resistant to it. You don't have as much anxiety about it. So it's really thinking about things in those terms that I've found have helped me greatly in my career. So I just pass that on to you to think about, perhaps in that respect, and see if I can pull this up and do this right. So I've got this Procore video, so maybe we'll just listen to it. I'll put the mic near it, and I think that should work because it's a little bit different than using Zoom. So we'll try it. Learning as we go, as I say.
I'm Mark Lyons, and in this video, we'll see an overview of Procore's construction project management software. Procore is used to manage thousands of construction projects across the country and around the globe. Procore makes it easy for an engineer in Seattle to collaborate with the architect in Dallas and the owner in New York, all for the project site in Austin. Procore gains more users every day because we sell our software as a single annual license without any per-user seat licenses. When you buy a Procore annual license, you can bring on as many project team members as you need without any additional costs or charges. We'll start at the Procore login screen, where users enter their email address and Procore password to access Procore from any computer in the world with an internet connection. The login form can be customized for any website to match your branding and corporate look and feel. Upon login, the user is taken to Procore's portfolio view, also known as the executive level of Procore. This screen lists all of the projects a firm manages. Several executive dashboards are available here, from a map view of all of the jobs, to financial summaries of all projects, and views that show the health or risk of each job. Now in the center, you see the different colors, the red, the orange, and the green. That's giving us the status of all of those different items. So obviously a job that's running very smoothly is going to be all green and orange, and those jobs that have a lot of red on them, those are the ones that are going to cause the company some risk. Those are the ones you might want to put some attention on. So from here, we're going to dive into a job by just clicking on the name of the project. The first screen a user lands on when they go into a project is their project dashboard. This dashboard is going to be unique to that user, dependent on the items that are assigned to them and the features they've been given access to. The gray tabs at the top of the project dashboard are Procore's project level features. Every tool in Procore can be turned on or turned off for an individual user. This point-and-click control panel makes it easy to dial down Procore's toolset for subcontractors, show an owner only the tools he needs to monitor project progress, or provide the project architect with access to only the RFIs, submittals, and drawings for the job. Procore's project dashboard provides an overview of the most important project data, including special communication items such as submittals, RFIs, punch list items, meeting minutes, drawings, document uploads, and more. Every user sees a list of open items that needs their attention. Recently changed items are also listed, so that the Procore activity for each project can be monitored at a glance. The project level features manage the data for each individual job in its own secure space. For example, every project managed in Procore will have an area to manage the financials of the job, like the budget, the contracts, and the change orders. Every project will also have areas to manage drawings, photos, meeting minutes, RFIs, and so on. Data is not mingled between projects. Every user in Procore has a permission setting. This setting determines what the user can see and do within Procore. You can give an individual user access to one of your company projects, a few projects, or all projects being managed in Procore. That same user can have permission to see RFIs in one job, but not necessarily another. Procore is flexible enough to allow you to share only the information you want with just the team members that you need. Procore is meant to be simple to use and easy to learn. Most people can learn to use Procore in just a few short sessions, often by simply pointing and clicking their way around the application. Some of the tools are as easy as using email. In fact, an RFI sent from Procore can be responded to by simply answering the email the design consultant received in their inbox. That answer will then be delivered back into Procore and emailed to the person who originated the RFI. This is extremely helpful with the adoption of Procore. When you're not requiring every user to constantly log on to the software, a lot of the collaboration is taking place by people just answering emails. And when you think about it, now you have a system that has every document in one place and all the email conversations around those documents also stored in the same place. Let's talk about our mobile apps for a moment, focusing on our iPad application. One of the most powerful parts of our mobile application is the drawing management system. The most current drawings are always at everyone's fingertips, and the guys out in the field can even embed punch list items and RFIs into the drawings, helping to deliver real-time as-builts. We really try to help our clients take the software out to the problem and not take that problem back to the software, which might be in the pickup truck, a job site trailer, or maybe all the way back in the corporate office. The team here at Procore is ready to show you more of our software's features. Using a screen sharing session, our consultants will take you on a live tour through Procore geared specifically to your project management needs. Contact us today to schedule a Procore demonstration and discuss a pricing plan that makes sense for your organization.
Hi, we're back. I hope you enjoyed that video. The video really went into the aspects of how a productivity software works. It's specifically for Procore, but I think you could see the idea is to make the collection of documentation easy, the inputs to the documentation even easier. That's why it showed the mobile app and how you can go to the site. You can enter things that you need to enter, the site super, the site project coordinator, field engineers. They can enter the required information right there. They don't have to go back to the trailer and open up their laptop to enter it. It makes things so easy. You can take a picture of a deficiency, you can send it off, and you can send it to the appropriate trade. They can respond immediately back. They don't have to open up the software. So it contains all the documentation for the project. Makes it a lot easier. You don't miss things, you don't lose things, and it's easy to find the appropriate things in the right spot. So a lot of advantages there, and as I said, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but you'll figure it out. That's sort of the process or way of thinking about this kind of systems. But it's really answering the why do we need to do it, and it's tying into everything we kind of talked about in this course, is all the documentation and all these different things. And you may be thinking, with all these different things we've been referring to, how does anybody ever keep some control over it? This is one of the mechanisms and tools that helps you in that way. And so when we think about value stream mapping, it does make things a lot easier from that perspective. So that's what I wanted to cover in this lecture. Tom Stephenson wishing you a great day, and keep at it, and we continuously improve. Bye for now.